all use that. So I'm like,
I did actually write them down. Yes, the librarians are.
Second row, which row you want to sit in? This one said like double-sided. Nice. Where everyone says. I'm not going to do what I told you the last time. Thanks for coming. So I'm not going to do that.
hi, nice to meet you.
Do you want to move back? No.
All right. All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, June 4th, 2024, 5:40 p.m. I want to welcome those of you that are watching at home and those of you who are joining us here in person today. Wake County Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the official business of the school system. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for the speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute 143, 318-17. So we'd like to ask all attendees to take a seat. We've been seated. Great. We note that we do have a quorum, 8 members here. Ms. Mahaffey is attending another school function tonight. And at this point, I'd like to ask all of you who are able to stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you, everyone. We will begin our meeting with the superintendent comments. We'll turn to Dr. Robert Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say it's the most wonderful time of the year in Wake County Public Schools, and that is graduation season. More than 12,000 members of the class of 2024 will cross the stage and step into the bright futures, ready for college, career, and productive citizenship. This year's seniors have earned millions in scholarship money, and many will be attending prestigious institutions such as Harvard, Davidson College, NC State, Central, Duke, High Point University, UNC Chapel Hill, Winston-Salem State, I have to add Fayetteville State, the United States Military Academies, and the Citadel. They've achieved all this and more despite starting their high school experience amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We do not need to forget that. I'm proud of each and every one of those students for persevering to reach this important milestone, and I'm grateful for the teachers and family members who supported them every step of the way. Graduation is the culmination of everything we strive for as a school district. Preparing students to live meaningful, productive, and fulfilling lives is what we're all about, and these young people are now well on their way. Every graduate has a story, and we will be sharing just a few of them over the next few weeks, so you'll know. So check out our website and social media channels for profiles of graduates who have left their mark in high school and are now ready to make that same mark in the world. So again, my congratulations to every member of the class of 2024 and their families. I do look forward to celebrating with all of them. Next, I'd like to recognize Dr. Kimberly Lane, our Senior Director of Magnet Programs, on being chosen to serve a 2-year term as President of the Magnet Schools of America. Magnet Schools of America represents and is a resource for magnet schools all across the country, and I can think of no more person more deserving of this prestigious leadership position than Dr. Lane. Since 2020, she has led our magnet programs with vision and purpose, building on the strong legacy of magnet excellence in Wake County and strategically implementing new programming to reflect the changing needs of students and families. Our magnet schools continually are recognized as national models of magnet schools. 2 of our schools, Athens Drives High School and Conn Magnet Elementary, were recently named the 2 best magnet schools in the country, and so we're so very proud of that. I know Dr. Lane will represent our district well as MSA president and use this platform to benefit students inside and outside Wake County. Also, congratulations to Ashley Robb of Mills Park Middle School on being named the 2024 Wake County Public Schools Counselor of the Year. Ms. Robb has been a school counselor for 6 years and serves as and served at Mills Park since 2021. She has been a catalyst for positive transformation in students' lives by focusing on data, accessibility, individual support, group and classroom lessons, and parental involvement. Her principal says that she has demonstrated a deep commitment to equity and inclusion within the school community and as a leader in the school and in the school counseling profession. She is also known for being calm under pressure and for her commitment to the well-being of all students. As we know, the work of school counselors is absolutely integral to our mission of helping all students succeed. We simply can't reach the goals set forth in our strategic plan without our school counselors systematically giving students the tools and support they need to overcome challenges and thrive inside and outside the classroom. So I thank her and all of our school counselors for the energy, compassion, and expertise they demonstrate every day. Again, congratulations is well deserved for this award. I would also like to recognize the students and staff at Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School, which was recently named as a School of Distinction by Project Lead the Way. Project Lead the Way provides students and teachers with hands-on STEM-based curriculum, creating impactful experiences that are inclusive and equitable for all. The goal is to empower students from all walks of life to unlock their potential. Southeast Raleigh is one of just a few hundred high schools across the U.S. to receive this honor for providing broad access to transformative learning experiences. The school has had to meet multiple criteria, such as the number of Project Lead the Way courses available, percentage of students enrolled, percentage of students taking more than one course, in efforts to ensure equitable access. So my hat's off to everyone at Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School for their intentional work to prepare all students for success in the modern workforce. And I'll end my comments with a wonderful meeting we had today with Cindy Long with the USDA, where I and members of the Board of Education and other administrative staff had a chance to engage with them about what we know is the important work centered around school nutrition. And so we had an opportunity to talk about the importance of nutrition in a general sense for students' well-being, but also the impact that it has on the academic achievement of students. We all recognize that a well-nourished body and a well-hydrated brain is optimal for learning, and so we know that collectively at the federal, state, and local level, we can do all the things necessary to make universal school lunches a possibility in this state. And so I wanted to share that that was a really great meeting to be able to engage at that level and continue to look at the work that we need to do as a school district. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Taylor. And congratulations to Ms. Robb at Mills Park. I've worked with her before. She's very deserving of that recognition. A few other special recognitions to go out. Panther Creek High School student Alex Fluker and Enloe High School student Connor Kruger recently received the DPAC Rising Stars Awards for the Best Actress and Actor, respectively, in the district. The DPAC Rising Star Awards, they are a regional award program as part of the National High School Musical Theater Awards, a.k.a. the Jimmies. We got to see the retirement of Mr. Kruger's drama teacher, who had been on Broadway on The Phantom and came back to Wake County and taught for, I think, almost 20 years in the arts program. And I really want to thank our arts director, who made a special trip out to convey some very special recognition to her, and a wonderful, wonderful ceremony. But congratulations to Alex and Connor for their recognition. In addition, Panther Creek High School students were featured in an article in the New York Times, if anyone saw it. It was called this week, "These Teens Adopted an Orphaned Oil Well, Then Shut It Down." And it's just a wonderful story, again, of student activism and empowerment and going out with a mission and seeing it to the successful end. So some great things going on at Panther Creek High School. As you heard from Dr. Taylor, there was an opportunity to meet with representatives from the United States USDA, the Department of Agriculture, and to talk about the school lunch program. And as you've heard around this table, the questions and concerns that board members have with the future of our lunch program is a real priority. And so this is something that we are going to be very intentional about over the next few months. We had a presentation in our work session today looking at our community eligibility program. The district policies regarding meals will come up in our policy committee, and we'll continue to look and explore what we can do to make our school lunch program sustainable and to be able to provide nutritious, healthy meals to all students without wealth being an obstacle, a barrier being an obstacle, or without stigma or shame. So you will see a lot of this issue coming up. I just wanted to go ahead and announce it now so no one's surprised when you keep seeing it up on the agenda. The big item tonight, of course, I think for most people is the Wake County Commissioners adopted a county budget. And, you know, there's good news, there's bad news. The good news, our county commissioners have approved the largest amount of county money ever spent on public education. And this is the largest increase in at least a dozen years, likely longer. And I think we need to show our sincere appreciation for that. This comes as the third year in a row that they've increased our budget by over $50 million. And we could not maintain the quality public schools that we have in Wake County without the essential partnership that we have with the Wake County Board of Commissioners. Together, we do make Wake better together, and this was a significant increase from what their manager had recommended in his proposed budget for public education. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news is those of you that follow our work and our budget know that even with this large, impactful increase, they did not fully fund our budget request. And even the budget we adopted did not go so far as to address all of the needs of our schools. Our budget, even larger than the county commission, what the county commission funded, still left out other priority needs we had identified in our multi-year plan. And so we had tried to prioritize compensation and student mental health and those important behavioral professionals, support professionals, in the request we made. So we won't know what our final school budget number looks like until the state legislature comes out and approves the state budget. That could be late summer, that could be early fall. I hope it's not later than that. But once we know what we're looking at, we'll know what our budget options will be. But without a fully funded budget, we want to set everyone's expectations. We will expect that we will have to cut some valuable and essential programs that we've been able to offer so far, whether those are ones that were funded with federal ESSER dollars or other things that we're able to identify. We will have to see. But I do want to say this, and I'm the chair, I'm speaking as an individual board member, but I believe that, and all of you board members, since I'm speaking first, feel free to disagree with me, but it's been my observation that I believe every member on this board, as we developed our budget, prioritized staff compensation. And so we won't know what we're dealing with until we see the state budget. But I believe all of us will do everything we can to see a budget that provides the increased compensation to our salaried and our hourly workers, to our teachers, to our bus drivers, to all of our important support professionals that we put in our recommended budget. Not sure how we're going to get there, but I think that's our priority. And if you agree, I'd appreciate any support, anybody backing me up on this. And again, if we are able to do this, I will say it will probably be because of the increase that the county commissioners were able to provide over what the county manager had recommended, because without that increase, I don't think that we'd be able to back up what we said we wanted to do. Now, the last thing is just the ugly truth. And despite what the county commissioners were able to provide, the ugly truth is that we're seeing that the current system of funding public education isn't sustainable. It's just not. Until we have a sustainable system for public school funding, we're always going to have to be in the position of making tough choices to cut valuable and essential programs for lack of funding. And that cheats our staff, that cheats our students, and it cheats our future. We know we won't have a more sustainable system until we can get the state to commit more dollars per public school student, plain and simple. And it would help if we could identify some other alternative stream of revenue coming in other than outside of our county property taxes. So going forward, I've pledged that I will work with the county for both of these goals, lobbying our legislature to fully fund our public schools, our teachers, our students, and to identify any other funding sources that might be out there. And we might have to be creative with this. You know, in the past, We've had fees and like fine forfeiture monies that have come in that over past years have dried up or they've been diverted for other purposes. We've had other funds that had been dedicated for public education that over the last decade have been diverted to other purposes. And I want to work with county leaders to try to explore some of these options and see what we can do to make sure we can have the resources in place to keep great public schools in Wake County. So we will know more as we get more from the state, but at this point, that's the best I can report. Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler.
Thank you, Chair, and I will start with saying, yes, I agree with you since I'm next to echo your sentiments that truly is not just your commitment, but certainly my commitment as well to our staff, and it's been something we've clearly, I believe, continuously worked on and will continue to attempt to stand in the gap with the support from the county, which I also appreciate, and still continue to push along our state elected officials regarding their responsibility as well. So I certainly echo and appreciate your comments, and would like to additionally thank the commissioners last night for their very thoughtful and transparent process in which they went through their budget. And I do believe most of us can say, we saw a few of them today, they did not take this lightly and understood what it meant to not fully fund this budget, but also recognizing their other responsibilities. And I would say we heard the majority of them say that they really worked really diligently to try to get us to the amount that we requested as a board. So again, my appreciation and support for them, and hopefully you all will extend that as well as we move to our next leg of this journey, because the General Assembly has not passed its budget. So hopefully we'll keep that same energy moving forward, and we will unfortunately do our due diligence once we do reconcile all of those budgets, which could be months from now. So again, to all of our supporters, continue to be great advocates and share our stories, and it's the stories that really, I believe, create the change for people. We certainly saw that with our commissioners. I will also echo another comment from both our chair and the superintendent regarding Director Long joining us today at Kingswood Elementary around child nutrition services. Many of you know that's been a long-time initiative of mine, and I continue to attempt a stalemate to not increase our lunch prices every year, while also being very clear and understanding that it is hard for people to understand that we need to make a profit to keep our child nutrition services in the black, but it's also important to me that the lack of funding for our services shouldn't directly impact families and their capability to pay for school lunches. So I'll continue to be an advocate, and hopefully we got great information today, as you heard from Dr. Taylor, from Director Long. So I feel like we have some support. Again, yet another thing for us to now take to the General Assembly, because we had a local and federal conversation about the importance. And one of the things that I think was well stated, and I think I have not used in my narrative before, is the importance of making school nutrition, lunches and breakfasts a part of our school day and not treating those things as though they're separate. So helping people understand the seamlessness of being inclusive of school lunches and breakfast. So again, a great opportunity to be in space and to hear that we have partners at the federal level who hear us and also are looking for creative ways, including but not limited to the CEP today. One thing that I always, when I talk to our students, especially sitting at the lunch table today, I asked them about school lunches and what they had to say. One of the things that I did not know, and Mr. Luca's not in here, but the director at Kingswood CNS was telling me that they taste test everything, the students taste test everything before it is actually served for lunch. So they were telling me, the students were telling me the most recent was some type of potato breakfast food that they liked. So apparently when we have a new vendor, they let the students taste test the food before it actually goes on their tray. So that was the most exciting things from the students' perspective of talking about school nutrition. Again, always a great reminder to be in our buildings with our young people, and especially our ambassadors who share their roles and responsibilities for us. Miss Mahaffey is at another event in her district, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't say this was I love it when there's a first because it feels like after 10 years, like what's the first? But we were at Felton Grove High School today for what we thought was going to be a beam raising, which I have been to before, but we were there for a flag raising, which I had never done before because of the delays of getting it up. They wanted to keep moving forward so the school could be ready, so they couldn't have a beam ready for us to raise and sign. So they raised a flag in honor because we also, some of you will know, we did not have a groundbreaking because of COVID. So this was the first event to acknowledge and celebrate a new school that's going up in Apex. And again, I'm sure Ms. Mahaffey would want me to thank all of the elected officials were there. We had 3 county commissioners join us today. Ms. Evans, who used to be a school board member, was on this board when we purchased that land, so she spoke today. And then we also had both town representation from Apex and Holly Springs. So thank you to our elected officials who continue to support our building program in Wake County. I'll switch these around so I end on a high note. Many of you who watch the local news know that a family in Garner, the Campbell family, was a tragic for the entire Garner community. I was traveling when it first happened, and I can't tell you the response that I got from schools, Parks and Rec, because the 8-year-old played baseball. Churches reached out to me as a board member to make sure I understood the impact that this was having in the community. They held a vigil for this family, but most importantly, it is always a reminder in a large community to see a community wrap around its school and wrap around its families. And so thank you to the Garner community for, one, making sure I was aware of what was happening while I was traveling for work, but more importantly, for taking care of the teachers, faculty, staff, and students who knew Miles at Aversboro Elementary. So thank you to everyone who reached out and were very supportive to that school community, and still being supportive, understanding that this will have lasting effects for his classmates. So thank you to the Garner community for that support. And on a high note, the Garner softball team won the championship, and I was like, if I forget, I know Mr. Hershey will remember for me. So again, the community wrapped around them. I was traveling, but they had a whole event. Like, I loved it on their social media. They were like, if you're in town, meet us at the restaurant. We're going to celebrate the girls. So again, it is a reminder that we don't do this work alone, while it sometimes feels like this sitting at this table in this seat, but we have a community of supporters. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our partners at Post Center. As they know, I love when they bring our young people to share the work that they're doing. So thank you for bringing our young people, and nice to meet them, and they are excited. So I will end my comments there.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Johnson Hostler. We'll go around the table. Mr. Hershey.
Thank you, Chair Hardy. Just on Garner softball, Coach Barber is a fantastic coach. He's been there a very long time. We coached against him when it was Wake Forest, Roseville, and we've always had great games against him. So even though they beat Wake Forest, congratulations to them. It's in my heart. Can't help it. I want to start by thanking also Dr. Harvey from DPI, as well as Director Long from USDA, for our conversation. And a lot of times, the public doesn't really see us as school board members really push staff a lot behind the scenes. And so there are times when I publicly, want to call attention to a staff member, give them credit. And really today it is, first of all, to Dr. Taylor, actually, it's our job to evaluate the superintendent. It's our number one job. We hire, we fire the superintendent. And we don't really talk a lot about or share moments about staff. So I just wanted to take this time, because it was a private meeting, and I was sitting there listening to our superintendent and the depth of knowledge on the topic, where he came from, his perspective, how he handled the federal aspect as well as the state aspect. It just, to people listening who may not know him yet, it was outstanding to see. It will go on my evaluation. Excellent work. But it's important to acknowledge staff, and not just staff at schools, but also our central office staff, and that includes our superintendent. So he did an excellent job. And for people that wonder like how how much attention he pays to different issues. He is all over this issue. He understands the importance of school nutrition. And so I'm looking forward to the after-action steps that we're going to be taking, including finding somebody to ultimately replace Ms. Johnson-Hostler as the do-it-all about school nutrition. I said in the meeting that I am thrilled that she's going to be ascending in the state legislature, but I am heartbroken that she's going to be leaving us, because the wealth of knowledge is something you just can't replace. I will do my best to try to fill like a portion of your shoes on that front. Moving on, let me thank Matt Calabria, County Commissioner Matt Calabria, for being at the meeting. He too has been a champion since he's been on since he's been a county commissioner. So I really appreciate him being there, his support for these programs. I also want to thank the county commissioners for their continued support of our public schools. I agree with the chair and the vice chair about prioritizing the salaries, and so you asked for agreement. I am giving you that agreement. But I appreciate the county commissioners for their dedication to our schools. They have a lot of responsibilities, but they've really done a marvelous job stepping up when the state has not. Before I go on, let me also point out that we did bring up how much it would cost the state to cover breakfast and lunch for all students, and we know there's a significant budget surplus that they are working on of about $1 billion, maybe a little less. It would cost only $100, and I will say only, because it's in the context of a big budget. It's in the context of their voucher program. Only $125 million to cover the entire state to ensure free breakfast and lunch for all students in our public schools. That's nothing, and it's absolutely worth it instead of cutting business income taxes to nothing. I can't help it. Let me move on to a couple of wonderful events. We had the Leadership Academy graduations. I always love being there for them. Congratulations to those students for moving on. I don't normally cry at graduations, but I did at Project Search yesterday, that a number of us were at. I thought it would be mentioned already, but let me just read what Project...
Tyler has an ongoing list, I forgot.
That's okay. I'm going to just read. I know Dr. Ng is going to speak about it too, but for those that don't know, this is coming straight off of their website. It's a high school or young adult transition initiative, which is a business-led one-year school-to-work program. And it is designed internships for students with intellectual or other developmental disabilities. And let me also thank Embassy Suites for their partnership. They are fully invested in this program. It is as joyous an occasion as you will see at a graduation. It is completely moving, and it was wonderful. I will not miss another of those graduations. Finally, let me close with, I want to congratulate all our Wake County Public School students and on earning their black belts at Master Chang's, which my colleagues know I have been missing a couple events to go to black belt training myself. And this includes students who are children of our staff, and covering really elementary through high school, and they did a wonderful job. And it led me to think, and I don't know where Dr. Robinson is. I don't see him.
He went to...
Oh, okay. Because I was going to talk about the strategic plan, because it made me think quite a bit about, a lot of these martial arts places are always like, hey, how can we partner with schools? And I'm not advocating that we have martial arts as part of PE, but I do think about the strategic plan and the well-being, priority to student dispositions and well-being, some of the aims that talk about promoting well-being. And I was looking at the standards of physical education for North Carolina, and I'm wondering how we use the strategic plan to kind of evaluate our PE programs, especially when you look at statistics around mental health, physical health, the long term in this country. How are we doing? So I would be interested as a board member, as hearing from staff, how we're applying and how we're actually examining the curriculum in this particular field for the well-being of our students. And secondly, and I would love to get this from staff, is when we have entities like this, and by the way, I do have to mention that Master Chang is a Wake County Public School family parent in the best district, which is District 6, which is my district, y'all. But how do we give opportunities for these organizations that want to present to our school district? Who do they speak to? How can they present? Whether it's creating an after-school program or being in our schools, and how do we make sure, especially as we're talking about community engagement as one of our big initiatives this year and ongoing initiatives, how do we give them that opportunity to really be heard and to present something? And I would love to get some information on that. And I will make one more request before I give this up. Since I mentioned the Leadership Academies, I would ask that the superintendent make sure that my colleagues get fully updated, because we are coming to a point in the next month and a half, where we're going to be looking at a new partner. And I just want to make sure my colleagues are fully up to date on that, maybe at the next closed session board meeting, as an ask. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, thank you, Mr. Hershey. Dr. Ng.
Good evening. I would like to congratulate all the seniors graduating this year. I had the fortune to be able to attend several of them so far. The Wake Early College of Health and Sciences, North Wake College and Career Academy, as well as the International Baccalaureate graduation at Millbrook High School. They're the smaller setting, which I really like, because they allow us to kind of hear what the students' accomplishments were and what they aspire to do when they go on to the next phase of their life. Yesterday, I was able to attend the Project Search graduation ceremony, and it was kind of emotional for me too, especially when they started playing that song from what was that? Hamilton, yeah. This program is a one-year internship program, like you said. And it's for our young people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And, the partnership with community partnerships and Embassy Suites has been a great thing to really help our community of people with IDD to lead a productive and fulfilling lives. And this is my second year attending this, and I really feel like that's always the highlight. It's always going to be the highlight of the graduation season. I wish to thank the Wake County Board of Commissioners for their hard work in putting together the budget. We appreciate that they put education of children as a top priority, but we also understand that they have many other priorities as well. Now we have to kind of come together to make some decisions for ourselves, and I agree we need to prioritize, helping our staff. And unfortunately, right now we are kind of living in a perfect storm. Our local economy is growing. We all see the buildings coming up, and more people are moving here, and so there are more children that need to go to school. And on the other hand, with the inflation under the current administration, everything costs more, including the cost of running a school system. And at the same time, we are having to transition away from the federal COVID relief money that is set to expire. So what do? We are feeling the financial squeeze just as much as you guys are at home. So what can you do? You can reach out to the state legislators to impress upon them the importance of supporting public education. Just this morning or yesterday, there was a glimmer of hope that DPI was presenting some recommendations for advancing special education funding. So that's really, I'm really hoping that there will be people that spearhead that, put it into a bill form, and if we can all support that, that would be great. You can also volunteer to help Age a Child School. You can, you and your neighbors can help each other out with transportation issues. And, when November comes around, there is a chance to, make your vote count. If you are not satisfied with the direction of this country, you have a right to make changes. Finally, this month is a very important one for me on my calendar. So last week, as we celebrated Memorial Day, our nation, pretty much stopped to honor those who died in the service of our country. And this week, on June the 6th, we will be commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day, when the Allied troops landed on the coast of Normandy to take back the Western Europe from the Nazis. That day was the beginning of the end of World War II. Thousands of young men died that day for the cause of freedom, but it really pales in comparison to the 6 million Jews who died in the Holocaust. So this month, when people talk about pride, I think about how proud I am to be a citizen of this great country, a nation that was founded on moral principles and whose people were willing to die to defend those moral principles. And when people mention allies, I think about those countries who banded together to fight a real threat to humanity, both in Europe and in the Pacific. That threat was ultimately revealed to the world when the Allied forces opened the gates of the concentration camps and saw the atrocities that happened there. And when people talk about their identity, I think about the millions of Chinese people like my grandparents who had to flee the Japanese army because they were massacring the people simply because they were Chinese. My identity as a Chinese is deeply rooted in the real struggles that my parents and my grandparents had to live through. And I also think about the Jewish people who, for centuries, have struggled to be seen and heard. They were enslaved, taken from their homeland, dispersed over the entire ancient world, persecuted, and even killed just because of their identity. And even now they are caught up in the fight for their very existence. So if there is anything to celebrate this month, it is to celebrate the legacy of the greatest generation. Without their selfless sacrifice to fight for what is right and what is true, the war would have had a very different result. Our world today would likely be a very different place, and this is something that we should never forget. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you. This week, I will spare you all from all the specific events and school visits that I've had because it would take way too long. But I will say that I love Maycember. I'm very grateful to all the school communities that have welcomed me in recent weeks. Congratulations to all of our graduates, not just our high schoolers, but to every student that is moving on from one grade to the next. You're a graduate too. You're a graduate in one way or another, and we congratulate all of you. Happy Pride Month to all of our students and staff that are in our schools in the LGBTQ plus community. You're seen, you're valued, and you belong here in Wake County Public Schools. I will continue to stand in solidarity with you to resist those that wish you harm in any way. I will do that as your board member, and I will do that in my personal life, on my personal time. Happy Pride Month. This weekend is Wear Orange weekend. Wear Orange is centered around Gun Violence Awareness Day, which is this Friday, June 7th. There are events all over the Triangle, all over the country actually. Local law enforcement here in Wake County participates, and it's a time to raise awareness about gun violence and prevention. You can simply wear orange or find an event near you at wearorange.org. And finally, a friend of mine wrote a book that was just released. Dr. Carrie Harwood wrote a book called Wake, and it is about a very tumultuous time in Wake County that happened with the 2009 school board elections. It is about why diverse schools still matter and truly integrated schools still matter. And while it does talk about a very particular specific point in time in Wake County, there's lots more in here about the larger picture about school integration. Dr. Bill McNeil is interviewed. You would read it. It's a quick read. You can see, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's, very easy to consume in a day or afternoon. But Dr. Bill McNeil is interviewed, and a lot of other local leaders that you'll recognize. So I encourage you to check that out. Things have changed drastically in the last 15 years. That was 15 years ago, or almost 15 years ago. And, we didn't have private school vouchers, certainly not what we have today. There was a cap on the number of charter schools. Wake County has changed drastically as far as like traffic patterns. Just getting from point A to point B looks a lot different than getting from that same point A to point B 15 years ago. And so I encourage you to check it out, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. And again, I've started that book from Dr. Harwood, and it really is a good read. We'll go back around the table. Ms. Rice, I know you know Carrie Harwood as well.
And I've got my signed copy that said I was there in the beginning. And I was right here at that very podium every week speaking up for families across the district to be treated fairly. Speaking of being treated fairly and equally, I too want to say Happy Pride Month, right? Even from a place of clergy. People may not understand, but I'm a believer that God loves everybody. And I'm not afraid to say that, considering I have families that have experienced major challenges of being accepted in all spaces and places. And I'm very thankful for the great job we do here at Wake County Public Schools of being an inclusive place for all children. And speaking of being inclusive for all children and making sure that our environmental wellness is good. I'm going to talk about wellness. But before I get to the environmental wellness, let's talk a little bit about intellectual wellness. And with that intellectual wellness space, I do want to celebrate and congratulate the amazing students at the Enloe High School who won first place won first place in their Honors Helpful Living course that they take in partnership with a corporation, a nonprofit organization, called Cranial Inc. With this first place honor that they won, it was student Emily Tidd, please excuse me if I say their name wrong, Anishka Banha, Nakaria Najanaram, and Carrie Norwood. I'm just going to leave that last name Norwood out there for us. Students did an amazing job with sharing their presentation, and basically what they did is they had to build a neuron. And so they built this neuron, and the doctor out at Duke University that who founded the program and is in partnership with Wake County Public Schools. I think about 25 schools across our district participates in this program. But of course, Enloe won. And so I was really excited about that. But what the doctor that shared about the presentation that those students that I just mentioned that won under the teaching leadership of Ms. Sherry Jones House, who is now the current AD director, the first African-American woman within the system to be an African-American woman and a woman as an athletic director. So we're making great strides in Wake County with being inclusive. But I was saying is she admitted how the students created their neuron was so life form because she's a neuroscientist. And so she talked about how what made them stand out was because they not only just demonstrated the pieces within the neuron, they did it in such huge life-size form that she says that's what it's really like in real life. And Dr. Neeme can understand that a little bit better than the most of us on the board, of how she says if you're a tall person, that neuron will be at the top of your head, and depending on how tall you are, it's long and it's big and it's stretching. And those students actually performed something that all four of them had to hold, which would demonstrate something that was real life. So I'm really excited about that place of intellectual wellness, of where we have our students demonstrating such academic excellence and in partnership with other partners that can expand their knowledge. The other thing that I want to say in reference to intellectual wellness is I am proud to be a part of a school system that believes in the overall development of how a robust library system supports our schools. And so I also want to encourage people to utilize their library systems. I have children that expands. I sit on this board as probably about 4 generations. Myself, Wake County Public Schools, my children, Wake County Public Schools, and my grandchildren right now of Wake County Public Schools. So that's 3 generations. And so therefore we know that our libraries are extremely, extremely important. My children love the library, not only just in our school system, but in our public libraries as well. And I've watched them flourish through that system. I've watched them start as elementary as preschool with their Bob books. I don't know if you guys remember those little 3-word books, right? See, we're on it. Even down to right now with my 1st grade granddaughter being so engulfed and bringing home books from our school library that I read to her even just on last night. And so I want to encourage us to continue to move forward with our intellectual wellness. Find a book. Encourage your children to check out a book in our library system and use it to the best of their ability to gain more knowledge. And so I'll move on into my second one, which is going to be environmental wellness. And this is why it's important to me. This month is Gang Awareness Month, encouraging individuals to wear orange. And so when we talk about the environment in which we live in, it determines a lot of times how people will be able to thrive. And so we have to take the time to look at how we are creating environments where people can have access to have recreational areas, how they can have activities and have promote mental and physical wellness within those constructs and those areas around those spaces that we live in. We want to make sure our homes are safe. We participated in our gun safety. That's an environmental space that we need to look at. But one thing that I want to highlight is with the environmental wellness. Knightdale High School did an amazing job with creating an environment to prevent gun violence. I wanted to highlight 2 community leaders which that prevents gun violence, which is Team Truth 919 and Catch the Kite. These 2 organizations were in Knightdale High School during the school year every Thursday to prevent gun violence from gun or gang people that we knew were actively within the community. And they would make sure that it did not enter into our school systems. And it was absolutely phenomenal, the work that they did throughout the entire school year. And so I would not be a good community advocate if I did not mention these 2 organizations who actually every Tuesday night host a teen talks every Tuesday night over in the city of Raleigh, and they would actually bring these teens together, and they also would be able to eat food, and they will really share and talk with students in real time about the communities they're in, their environments, right, who may not look as well as someone else's, and they would really talk to them and encourage them to do what's right and not to bring that into our school system. So I think that I had to really express my gratitude, considering it's gang awareness, that these folks are actively in our schools. So even though I know we see things that are going on in our schools, there are people out here who are doing the extra mile and the extra step to make sure that it doesn't escalate even more. They've had numerous phone calls where our very own children have called their organizations because they did not want to do the wrong thing, but needed an escape because their environment was not the way that it needed to be able to make the right decision. So they call these men to literally take the guns out their hand. And so I'm excited about this wellness piece. And so I'll just end with saying this to you. Check your environmental spaces. Access your environmental space and determine how you can improve them for your well-being. That's in your home space, then your community space, and then just check out the world. Have a positive and productive day.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. And I will say that in your comments, you reminded me something that I was remiss to address before. We need to give a special congratulations, Wake County Public School System. We have 13 students district-wide that were named National Merit Scholars.
Yes.
That's
That's right,
2,500
right.
nationally. Some of them at the high school that you mentioned.
Intellectual wellness.
Right there. So thank you, Ms. Rice. Ms. Caulfield.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can follow all that energy, but I'll
Hey,
try.
Great schools, great wake.
I was also at the meeting today, and it was great to have all the different voices at the table, but I do believe that we can extend that seat to, at the table to others. Some of the right people to understand the money, the quality, and conserving waste and sustainability with the restrictions and regulations that we must follow. This is in regards to the food that we were talking, the nutrition we were talking about today. Because it's more than just food and feeding our children, as Dr. Taylor, was referring to. It's the quality in our food and what we provide to our kids. It's not only what nurtures our students' minds, but also their well-being and how the success of their day will go. So I'm glad that those conversations are going to continue, and I look forward to doing more help with that. This is an exciting time for everybody. While we spent a few weeks of celebrations and senior awards, I was honored to attend Wake Forest High School last week, and they went well over the time frame for all of their student senior awards, and they presented so many wonderful recognitions to all the seniors there. So congratulations to all of them. They earned $7.4 million in scholarships. So congratulations to all the seniors at Wake Forest High School. I also went to Knightdale High School, and I'll tell you, it was like a competition between Knightdale High School and Southeast Raleigh. The excitement from the families and the students, at that graduation, the energy was just unreal. I do not remember the number that they said Southeast Raleigh had for the millions of scholarships they won, but Knightdale, I know, got over $4 million in scholarships, so that was wonderful to hear. And the principal at Southeast Raleigh, he led with the growth mindset and spoke about a story, which really, I just keep thinking about it. And I've heard this story before, but it's a good reminder, the story about the boiling water and how it turns the carrot soft, the egg becomes hard, and yet the boiling water, which is stressed, dissolved, and impacted the change of the bean to succumb and develop new opportunities, transformed its surroundings with strength, integrity, and endurance. I saw this as great advice for the students that they are about to venture in the next path in their journey, and hopefully they remember that message day in and day out. And I've heard the story before, but I have to continue to remember that because it just encourages growth with change. Not all change is negative, and sometimes it's actually, there's a meme that I just saw recently, and I could not remember it, but it's like sometimes don't be upset that the path has led you in a different direction. Sometimes that is the path. So to allow that positive growth for all of you while you venture out into that, I thought that was great advice. This coming Friday, I'm going to celebrate Roseville's graduation, and next week we have Wake Forest High School and Heritage High School. So I'm excited to see those. I wanted to give a special congratulations to the class of 2024. This year, graduation is very special for me, as well as all of these students. I'll be celebrating with so many families that I have watched grow since kindergarten and even before that. And I'm going to have a really hard time not being emotional on that stage. But it also reminds me this year that all of these graduates for the class of 2024, 4 years ago, were so excited to step into high school and join, their high school where they were going. And that new venture turned into a lockdown. And most of them had a year to a year and a half where they were in remote and virtual learning. Everything was new, and it was hard, but they made it. So these graduates should be proud. It looked very different for many of them. And so many students ventured in different directions. It looked different for everybody, and it just reminded me how much they had to overcome to reach this week of celebrations. So an extra congratulations, and just really heartfelt to all of the students that are there. They should be so proud, and I know it's going to be a very emotional year for everyone as they celebrate their children and their successes. Remember, each day is a new day, and you are the author of your story, so I wish you all many blessings as you go out and write that story. To all those teachers who showed up, who were compassionate, they showed compassion, they were patient and resilient themselves, and who guided and helped our children navigate such a challenging time, thank you. The impact that those lessons and examples that you showed to these students is invaluable, and I want to say that we appreciate you and we thank you. Without you, they could not have thrived, and nor could we. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caulfield. And Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. I had some remarks prepared, but I will just start with the to-do list that Ms. Johnson-Hostler gave me and not belabor the point so we can hear from the public. I want to start by saying thank you to Ms. Sherry for welcoming us at Kingswood this morning. It's always great to be at Kingswood, to see the great things and just the great learning environment that's taking place there. Also a congratulations and a major shout out to Anaya Prasanna, the Davis Drive Middle School student who placed 3rd place in the National Spelling Bee. I also want to give a shout out to the Green Hope student newspaper for all of their accomplishments this year, having the #1 distinguished website, over 517 published items, 67,706 pages viewed, and 73,607 stories read. I also want to shout out Dr. Jordan, the proud principal of Enloe in the back, as we were talking about the greatness that was happening at Enloe. Always great to see her, and I used to work with Miss Jones, Coach Jones, so I know the greatness that she does every day in the classroom, and I was a teacher at Enloe Magnan High School. Lastly, I also want to thank the commissioners for their dedication and their commitment to Wake County Public Schools. And like everyone has said, this has been a very tough budget. I know that there's many things that could be done, but I will remind the public, since I know the national conversation was brought up, that if you're not satisfied with what's happening in the state level, there is an election to make your voice heard. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, that concludes all of my remarks, and congratulations to the class of 2024.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. That concludes our board member comments. At this point in time, we will consider our meeting agenda for approval. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the meeting agenda.
I appreciate that enthusiastic endorsement from Ms. Edmonds and the equally boisterous second from Ms. Rice. We have a motion for approval of the meeting agenda. I know what Mr. Hershey has coming. That'll come after this motion. All in favor of adoption of our meeting agenda for tonight, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Wasn't so sure there. Motion passes. All right, Mr. Hershey.
I enthusiastically make a motion to approve the HR recommendations made in closed session.
Second.
A motion for Mr. Hershey, a second for Mr. Swanson. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. At this point on our meeting agenda, we have an information item from our Academic Advancement Office. We have a presentation, a student advocates vaping presentation. Mr. Glendenning.
Good evening, Chair Haggerty, Superintendent Taylor, and members of the board. My name is Brian Glendenning. I'm the Senior Administrator for Health and Physical Education for our school system. It's my pleasure to introduce a team of student advocates who have worked diligently over the past several years to raise awareness about the harmful effects of vaping and share resources for those looking to quit in their school. Their passion and persistence in this area is inspiring, and their leadership as students is so very valuable to our school system and community. Presenting tonight are Arjun Kucha, who is a senior at Enloe High School, so he's just about done. He's going to do one more thing for us before he's done. Vishnu Reddy Ranabathu, who is a junior at Enloe. We got him for one more year. And Benjamin Liu, who is a senior at Green Hope High School. So I'll turn it over to them at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Glendenning, and to all of the Wake County School Board members for allowing us the opportunity to speak today and for supporting our efforts. My name is Arjun Kuncha. I'm a current senior at Enloe High School. I first noticed vaping back in middle school. So these past few years, I've seen many peers using vapes, especially in places they shouldn't be. That includes like school bathrooms and other public places where they could have an influence on people in their surroundings. I also saw that many people are just ignoring this problem, and it made me very concerned that this issue was going unaddressed. Studies have shown that more than 90% of people who smoke or vape begin doing it before the age of 18, and that's why it's so important to take these preventative measures. And when students do start to vape and experience these withdrawal symptoms, they don't know how to access the cessation resources to quit. Throughout high school, I've been working to make sure that my peers don't suffer the same fate. In my sophomore year, I had the idea to expand my reach in combating vaping to my school. The next year, I formed the Enloe Students Taking on Prevention, or STOP Coalition, to promote safer environments throughout my school and community service and informational presentations. While it did pass along a powerful message, it wasn't reaching the whole school. Last summer, I got the opportunity to attend the CADCA, or Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America Conference by the Post Center, and there I was able to meet many different people from across the country involved in similar initiatives. I searched for ways I could continue to raise awareness, and I stumbled upon a campaign known as Escape the Vape Week. It was created by a student in a Cincinnati high school named Sondali, and it seemed like the perfect way to get the Enloe community involved with our cause. I brought along Vishnu since he was in youth empowerment, and it was a long process, but it began with me meeting with community leaders like Ms. Virginia from the Post Center and Ms. Mulvihill for the Wake County Department of Health and Human Services. And we developed a layout for Escape the Vape Week. I first presented to the Wake County SHAC and then to the school board, and later we both met with the principal, Dr. Jordan, and Mr. Brick. And they've been very supportive throughout the process, and we're very thankful for that. And I also met with Mr. Glendenning, and he advised us on how to run the campaign in our school. With the help of the Enloe Stop Coalition, Key Club, and National Honor Society, we were able to set up these educational posters, banners, and more throughout the school. And Escape the Vape Week featured daily afternoon announcements, interactive presentations, social media posts, and cessation resources that were able to reach the whole school. And with the help of the Post Center, we were able to give away 2 gift cards to the winners of our Kahoot trivia game that we hosted after the presentation we did during lunch. And so our end goal was to raise awareness about vaping's harmful effects and provide cessation resources for those who are quitting, and both of which we were able to do. During that week, we were also able to make people really aware of the issue, and they started talking about it with other students and staff, which is what our main goal really was. And by putting up that Pledge to be Vape-Free banner, we gave students the opportunity to directly interact with our initiative, and they could repost our posts on social media as well. And overall, I'm very proud of what Escape the Vape Week has achieved, and I'm hoping that we can permanently implement this in Wake County schools because it really does provide students an avenue to kind of get the resources they need and also spread awareness. And I'll hand it over to Vishnu so he can go more in depth on some of the biggest outcomes, successes, and implications of our pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun, and thank you, Mr. Glendenning and Ms. Virginia and Dr. Ray. So, my name is Vishnu Ranabothu, and I'm a junior at Enloe High School. For the last 3 years, there hasn't been a single week where I have not seen my own peers vaping in the bathroom. Every day, without fail, a large portion of my peers willingly sabotage their health and potentially their future. And that is why I'm so passionate about the Escape the Vape Week campaign. I'm now going to share with you the various phases of implementation of the Escape the Vape Week at Enloe High School, which we implemented last November. Firstly, we had informative posters hung around the school and where people vape the most, which are bathrooms. This serves as a constant reminder to those who do and do not vape that the health detriments are immense. Secondly, we placed a banner near the cafeteria, which is where almost every student passes by every day, where students can pledge to be vape-free, as Arjun mentioned. We also had daily announcements on our school's news system, The Lowdown, about one quick health fact regarding vaping. Similarly, we had announcements after school concluded that were said right before the bus changes were announced. This helped raise awareness to the entire school. Our campaign was implemented during the week of the Great American Smokeout, which was convenient because it was about time for students to address vaping, especially for the sake of other students. However, there were some challenges we faced with implementation. Many people did not take the campaign seriously and were in fact tearing our posters down. Others were completely ignoring the posters and actually vaping right in front of them. I walked in on this several times. Thankfully, we had many kind people who supported the cause and left positive comments on our feedback forms, and some even helped rehang the posters. We planned several meetings through our club, the Stop Coalition, which stands for Students Taking on Prevention. This is where we incentivize community-oriented students to help put up posters around the school, which we found beneficial, as we were able to converse with students that also see the negative effects of vaping and are willing to take part in this cause. All in all, our campaign was successful. Almost 50 students attended our educational presentation on vaping during lunch. We had 100 plus views on our link tree and had 100 plus signatures on our pledge to be vape free. Many people repost on social media, not always with the right intentions, but at least it helped spread the message. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu, for that. My name is Benjamin Liu, and I am a graduating senior at Green Up High School, and in the fall, I will be attending the University of Pennsylvania. My involvement in this anti-nicotine campaign first started when my friend Abhinav Guram, who's also a senior at Green Up High School, fortunately he couldn't make it today, but I remember it was August of last year. He came to me. He said he received an email from Miss Catherine Mulville from the Wake County Tobacco Coalition, and this email was an invite for the meeting. We were at first confused because we thought it was an accident or by pure luck, but at this opportunity we jumped at it. We contacted Miss Mulville, and through the contact, let me rephrase that. We jumped at this opportunity to voice our concern about our youth, and specifically how we were concerned about how our youth's health was impacted through vaping and nicotine use. Specifically for me, my concern for youth health was first started when I witnessed close teammates on the varsity football team using vapes and nicotine products before and after practice. As varsity captain, I try to talk to them and console them and ask and try to give them help in order to quit, but some of them weren't interested in quitting, and the teammates that were interested in quitting simply kept on failing time and time after again. I knew I had to do something because these with vaping not only impacted their health, but also our relationship as a team. This vaping harmed their lungs, made them unable to breathe, and caused irregular heart rates, where they were forced to sit out games. Likewise to Arjun and Vishnu, I also witnessed peers using vapes and nicotine products on a daily basis whenever it's during passing period and I'm in the bathroom. And administration's unable to solve or impact this issue. This prompted my involvement in the Poe Center of Health Education. Working with the Poe Center of Health Education and students from Enloe, we decided to implement the Escape the Vape campaign in our schools. Similarly to Enloe, Abhinav and I also implemented this campaign in Green Hope, where we coordinated with the Poe Center team to put resources as well as our school administration. The biggest difference between our campaign and Enloe's campaign was we put a twist on it. I specifically researched that personal stories of advocacy have the greatest impact. With this in mind, I reached out to Daniel Ament, a teen from Michigan who was hospitalized and almost lost his life to vaping and nicotine addiction a few years ago. He received a double lung transplant. He was in a 30-day medically induced coma, and after a year-long recovery process, he finally became healthy again. With his approval, we spread his mission in our posters, showing the true and devastating impacts of nicotine use. Our posters garnered both positive and negative feedback. Despite poster vandalization and people tearing them down, we fought back by putting them up. Overall, Abhinav and I hung over 300 posters in the hallways, bathrooms, stairwells, and common areas of our school. Most notably, after the program, we saw groups of students and teachers in class exclaiming at our efforts and applauding our efforts and encouraging each other to abstain from nicotine. Our friends corroborated the story, hearing positive conversation about our nicotine cessation project efforts. Some recommendations I have the future through our experience to improve the implementation of Escape the Vape campaign would be to involve every school and involve more schools and for increased impact. Ideally, every single high school in the county. Ideally, wait, hold up. I would also advise to invite a guest speaker to share their experiences with nicotine addiction and provide nicotine cessation resources from the counselors and administration themselves. Finally, I'd like to thank Mr. Glendenning and the Wake County School Board for your continued support. On behalf of Arjun and Vishnu and myself, we thank you for allowing us to speak on our experiences during this meeting.
Chair Haggerty, may I, after you?
Just really quickly, Mr. Glendenning, I didn't know if there's anybody else that you wanted to recognize or if there's anything else in the presentation?
That will be all the information. It is all about these students and what they have to bring to the board.
All right, wonderful. Ms. Edmonds.
I just wanted to thank you for coming. This presentation came about with my, not because of, but I'm involved, the board liaison with the SHAC, the School Health Advisory Committee, and Mr. Glendenning brought this to my attention, and we agreed that it was something that the full board should hear, and I just really appreciate you students coming out. And I know you sat here for an hour as we went around to give our own comments, but we really appreciate your time, and thank you, Mr. Glendenning, for all that you do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds, and thanks to you again for bringing this to our attention and requesting to be put on the agenda. Thank you all very
Chair.
much. Yes, Ms. Rice.
I can't let this one go. This is my email. I just also want to continue to highlight, I just want to say Arjun is an amazing student. He also won a competition for the Wake County 4-H. He's a part of the Wake County 4-H GIS Club, and he actually won second place at the National High School GIS competition. So he's a senior that is well-deserved.
Yes, Ms. Caulfield.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming out tonight. I mean, it really means a lot to hear from voices, especially as a teen with your peers going through the same thing. This is not the first time that I've seen you in the last couple of months, and it's really great to see how much you're advocating for the students and how you're getting around Wake County and really just spreading that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Caulfield. Any other questions or comments? Again, we just want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your advocacy. It was important to share what you're doing, but it's just the actual work you're doing is very, very important for your peers and others, educating them about the risks that they're taking. And, you know, we often talk to kids about, you know, decisions you make now having long-term impacts, sometimes to the point of scaring them or a little bit of overkill. But we know from the addictive quality of vapes and the quantity of nicotine contained within these devices that the actions that students start that might start off very mild can have life-threatening long-term impacts. So you really are saving lives. So thank you very much. All right. The next item on our agenda, we will transition over to public comment. You all know the spiel by now, but I'm going to read it anyway. Speakers commenting on items on tonight's agenda will be heard before speakers commenting on other topics. All other speakers will be heard in order of sign-up. Only the person speaking at the podium will be able to stand. Again, all attendees that are not speaking are to remain seated. If you have to leave the room, please do not remain in this building because only this room is open right now after hours. The rest of the building is closed. If the public comment portion of the meeting exceeds 30 minutes, board policy states that the board chair reserves the right to conduct other board business before inviting the remaining speakers to the podium. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at the substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. Laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or concerns that address or that involve individual personnel or individual student matters which may be confidential should be addressed to appropriate WCPSS staff, and we can work with you to direct those to the appropriate staff person rather than making those through public comment. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, speakers are encouraged to address their comments up to the board, up here to the front, and to refrain from personal attacks or assaults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, and especially members of the public and your fellow speakers. Any materials you wish to share with the board should be handed to the board attorney, Mr. Rod Malone here, either before or after your comments, please not during. During the comment period, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. Note the microphones. They are adjustable, and we will see with various speakers they go up and down. Your time begins when you start speaking, so you don't have to worry if you need to take a second to compose yourself, to organize. Your time starts once you start speaking. You'll see a yellow light that will, and you'll hear an audible tone when you have 30 seconds. Continue on, don't let it distract you and stop you, but when you see the red light and hear another audible tone, you do need to stop. Your time is up, and the next speaker will be called up to the podium. I think we've got it. We ask that you respect the time limit, speak for no more than 3 minutes, and of course, we remind you, you may speak for less time, but you are entitled up to your full 3 minutes. All right, so our first speaker tonight, I need to move to, this list is Nadia Stefan on academic achievement, followed by Susan Book. Is Nadia here?
I wasn't, can you hear me? Sorry. This is my first time speaking for the board, so I'm not really sure if I went into the right category. Am I supposed to push one of the, okay. So my son is an elementary school student in Wake County, and he has multiple mental health disorders, and he has an IEP, and I've gotten him transferred, but unfortunately, I'm not really sure. I keep getting told different things, and he keeps getting told things. He's like being bullied at school. He's in 3rd grade, told like to kill himself, and he's said he's going to kill himself in front of the principal, and the person just ignores it. But if it's somebody else that's saying, they just keep writing, like doing FBAs, and I've had to take him to. He's had the same therapist for 3.5 years. And the same neuropsychiatrist for 3.5 years, so nobody's looking for, there's no shortage of mental health needs. So they've had it with the school, and it's just, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I don't know what, he used to love, he wanted to live at school. I'm boring, I'm old, he's 8, nobody wants to hang out with their mom. And now it's almost impossible to get, he can't transition to the bathroom. And he wants to leave and go to the unknown, which is like a miracle for him. And they've lost him over 50 times. He's 8. I just don't understand. He's failing everything, and comes home crying that that they don't care. There's nobody safe. It's I've tried to talk to the appropriate steps, and I just don't know what else to do at this point. He even Read to Achieve, I can't afford to drive him there, and they won't provide me transportation. But his transfer was a medical necessity because he can't do year-round school, which was his base. It wasn't even the school I picked. It's just they gave me 5 options because he has a letter of medical necessity for the traditional calendar year school because he needs the structure. He has, like I said, 4 diagnosis. He's a challenging kid. I don't deny that. But when you get to know him, and he once he gets to know, he follows the rules. He just needs to know what they are, what's expected of him, and just to see a kid just to see him like that is mind-boggling to me. And I guess I don't know what else to do.
So, Ms. Stefan, what we'd like is if you have the time tonight, Michelle Woodson here on our staff would like to talk to you about the issue and try to provide whatever information we can to
Okay.
get this worked out for you, okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate
All
your
right,
time.
thank you.
Sorry, like I said, you're good.
That's quite all right. All right, our next speaker will be Susan Book, followed by Christina Spears. Good evening, Ms. Book.
First and foremost, although unplanned, I did not realize it was library night. Listen to these ladies, please. The Media Center has been a sanctuary for my child since day one. It is his happy place and his safe place, and that is because of librarians. But I wanted to tell you that at the end of April, I had the great privilege of presenting at the Family and Community Engagement Summit. The summit might have overdone itself with more breakout sessions than necessary. However, I'm very proud of my presentation, and I hope to be able to present again sometime. A question hung in the keynote. Why don't we have disability parents more involved with things other than IEPs? I am more than happy to talk to any one of you and staff about my personal experiences, both in and out of engagement, but it would certainly take up more than 3 minutes. In fact, I was first asked by an organizer of the summit to do something about the IEP process, to speak on that. For a talk to any audience greater than one, it's hard because IEPs are individual. They should be individualized to the student, to the school, so those workshops and talks are always awkward, not to mention how many of those seminars already exist. Besides, we should honestly be looking at family engagement beyond the IEP table. I chose to talk about disability rights in general and the real issues of ableism facing families like mine. Since I have a limited time, let's just talk about the end of the year engagement opportunities before us right now. Celebrations, dances, ceremonies, movies in class, and not to mention multiple disruptions to school schedules. It's not easy right now for our neurodiverse community right now. You probably will be calling us parents and reporting behaviors, but really, it's a dysregulated day created by the school itself. We often opted as a family to miss some of these days after EOGs because there isn't any new material, and in the words of my son, some things you all think is fun isn't really fun for me. So we don't engage. We skip ceremonies that end up being more of a long wait and end up with a dysregulated child at the end. It does get better with age, but the feelings of being left out remain. When you leave out the kids or segregate the kids, you leave and segregate the parents too. We're still doing lots of things traditionally with adults in mind at the end of the year, and not what meets the needs of our inclusive populations. It's time to rethink how we do our programs so that we're more inclusive. If you're unsure of what that might look like, you might need to start real conversations with diverse families like mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Book. Our next speaker is Christina Spears, who will be followed by Julie Stivers.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, board members, and staff. Happy Pride Month, happy graduation season, happy June in public schools, happy everything. I'm Christina Spears, special education teacher, former coordinating teacher in equity affairs, reader and believer in worker power. First, I want to recognize this moment in budget season as you all have. Thank you for your unanimous vote last month to make a historic request to the Commission to ensure employee compensation and retention of important support staff. Since your vote, Wake NCAE packed the Commons building for the Commission public hearing. Union members, staff, parents, clergy, and allies told our stories about how much we love our schools in Wake County and how desperately we needed commissioners to stand in the gap. They listened, engaged in what they called the most difficult budget season yet, and made hard decisions to keep taxes above revenue neutral in order to fund a $58 million increase to your request. There is lots of work ahead of you and ahead of us as we wait for the General Assembly's final budget. I hope the staff and parents who participated in this process by turning out and speaking up will continue to be involved as this body makes decisions about reconciliation this summer moving forward. But tonight, I'm here to stand with our school librarians. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. I believe, just as this board does, that school librarians are critical staff in our school communities. They are literacy leaders who provide access to books, technology, and other worlds for our students. You've demonstrated that value in your support of Wake Up and Read and the Diverse Books Grant. Unfortunately, the burden is on librarians and families to fund school libraries through grant writing, book fairs, and crowdsourcing donations from the community. Having physical books in libraries to drive academic growth and student achievement is an issue a majority of folks can get behind, regardless of race, gender, zip code, or party affiliation. Our librarians are most knowledgeable and qualified about how to do that, getting books into the hands of all of our students. I'm proud of their advocacy to raise the issue of equitable funding for all school libraries. I'm proud to stand with 158 school librarians as they deliver their photo petition, asking for your consideration on funding school libraries by allocating with parity from Fund 2. Those are monies from the state for instructional materials. It's been a pleasure to be led by these librarians. Let me be clear, they are not asking for more money. They're asking for an opportunity for deep strategic collaboration with important stakeholders in this organization. Thank you to Mr. Badula, Kendra Allen, and the DLL team for meeting with us this spring to start this conversation. We hope this is the beginning of a collaboration between libraries, librarians, school and district staff, Mr. Badula, DLL Equity Affairs, and you, the school board, to ensure librarians have the books and resources they need to support all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spears. Our next speaker is Julie Stivers, who will be followed by Stephanie Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Julie Stivers, and tonight I'm speaking as a Wake County resident and community member. I believe in school libraries, and this belief is based on some key truths. One, school libraries are sanctuaries for so many students. Of course, school libraries help develop lifelong literacy. School libraries coach students in navigating an information-saturated world. School libraries improve academic outcomes. There are over 60 research studies that show that students with access to school libraries with certified librarians perform better academically and score higher on standardized assessments. Studies show even higher growth when librarians work with students that have been identified as underserved. This could include Black, Indigenous students of color, students with disabilities, and/or economically vulnerable students. It's a final truth. School libraries are essential for WCPSS, yet they don't exist in a vacuum. They need support. Wake County school libraries are not warehouses of books and Chromebooks. School libraries are programs, not rooms. To run, these programs need to be resourced with funding each year, no matter the individual school climate, zip code, or administration. If we believe in public education, we believe in the idea that every school should be resourced. Unfortunately, if we look at our libraries, that is not currently happening in Wake County. There is an absurdly wide variation in the funding that each library receives from their school, with some libraries receiving no funds at all to purchase books. Book fair profits do not count. That's a whole nother talk. But relying on book fair profits to fund our school libraries is expecting our families to pay for our school library collections. It's unacceptable. Every student in Wake County needs access to a fully funded library, no matter their zip code. That's it. That's the message. I stand here in solidarity with these amazing librarians here tonight because every student needs access to a funded library, no matter which Wake County school they attend. The zip code of a Wake County student should not determine their quality of their school library collection. And I think you would all agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stivers. Next up is Stephanie Johnson, followed by Heather Munger. Hey, good evening.
Hello. I'm here to speak on behalf of all the children at Lake Myra Elementary School, as also a parent who has a kindergartner there. I think in today's world, we all send our kids to school and pray and hope they come home safe. I don't think I need to go over all of the statistics of gun violence and horrible things that have happened around our whole country. On Tuesday, May 14th, last month, Lake Myra was used as a public voting spot. Now, normally you would say big deal, except it was used as a public voting spot during school hours with students and staff. Our doors were open to one and all, and we know it only takes one to send chaos and have a very bad outcome. So I know all of the board members here have the safety of our kids and staff as a top priority. So I hope in the future that this ever has to happen again, that we would not have students in the building, and maybe not have voting there, or not have students in the building, as in the November, we did not have students in the building. I know some said it wasn't going to be a large party, it was only one of the parties, there wouldn't be many people, but again, it only takes one. So, thank you for listening. My name is Stephanie Johnson, and I also work at Lake Myra in the ECS classroom.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Heather Munger, who will be followed by Evelyn, is it Bussell or Bussell? Bussell. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Chair Haggerty, and board members. My name is Heather Munger, and I'm a Wake County Public School librarian and parent, and a proud Wake NCAE member. I am here today to present the petition for fully funded libraries on behalf of 158 Wake County Public School librarians. What does a fully funded library mean? Let me start by highlighting how the library's goals and objectives embrace the vision of Board Policy 3000, which is the goals and objectives of the educational program. It states, the Wake County Board of Education believes that the function of formal education is to provide a foundation for lifelong learning and to enable each student to participate effectively and responsibly in a changing world. Recognizing that students have diverse capabilities, interests, and individual patterns of growth and learning. There are many examples of how our libraries support these goals and objectives, but the one that I would like to discuss today is our book collections. A fully funded book collection means that we can support all students' research projects, free reading, and personal interests. In libraries, we're always striving to provide a broad range of viewpoints on a topic, to find the most relevant, up-to-date information on all subjects, reflect on current reading trends, provide access to various depths of content, reading levels, formats, and if possible, languages, support new classes and curriculum, remove outdated and incorrect materials, replace well-loved, well-worn books, buy extra copies of popular titles, ensure that every student sees themselves in a book, sees their interest represented on the library shelves or highlighted in displays, discovers something new or someone new when they visit the library. These points do not even address how hard librarians work to get books in the hands of all of our students. There is not one model library. Libraries need to support the school that they serve. A book collection is not something that can be built and then left unmanaged. This is why we are asking for a reliable stream of funding for all of our Wake County Public School libraries and to help us continue to build a culture of literacy and research at all grade levels in every school. I am here today to ask you to consider fully funding school libraries by allocating with parity from Fund 2. By working with us, we will be able to support all three priorities of the strategic plan: student knowledge and skills, student dispositions and well-being, and operational effectiveness. Thank you for your time and consideration on this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Evelyn Bussell, followed by Michelle O'Keefe. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Evelyn Bussell, a Raleigh native, a parent of 2 Wake County Public Schools students, a product of Wake County Public Schools, and a librarian at Leesville Road Middle School. Since 2002, I have worked in Wake County school libraries, in year-round and traditional calendar schools, 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 3 elementary schools, 2 different magnet programs, and 2 Title I schools. And in all of that time, I have never had the assurance of a budget for library books. When there were funds for books, it was never enough to replace lost, outdated, or damaged books, much less to keep up with new or high-demand titles. I've written grants. I've given up instructional time and closed checkout to my students so that I could set up and run book fairs to raise money. I've asked PTA for money and solicited the community for donations to get books into my libraries, even if that meant driving to a stranger's house to go through books they've stacked up in their garage. It never gets easier telling students, I don't know when or if we'll even be getting the latest Dogman book, or the next Harry Potter book, or a biography on the latest pop star. It never gets easier telling students that I don't have a book on that nonfiction topic you have a project for your class. Or I do, but it's so outdated, it's from when I was in elementary school in the 80s. Last summer, I joined with other school librarians in the district and Wake NCAE to join forces in advocating for change. Over this past year, I have learned the state provides funding in Fund 2 for instructional dollars to the district, which is then distributed to each school based on enrollment. And under Fund 2, in school budgets, there is a line item for library books. This year, only 51% of Wake County schools did not have funds in the line item for library books. 10% of those schools had less than $1 per student in the line item for library books. In case you didn't know, a library book cost an average of $22. 70% of schools have outdated collections as measured by Wake County Library Collection Standards. How are we supposed to keep our school libraries up to date and engaging for our students, to prepare them to reach their full potential and lead productive lives if there's not a reliable funding to purchase resources to keep up with a changing and complex world? I'm here asking you because my children and my students deserve to have access to current engaging books reflective of themselves and their experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle O'Keefe, followed by Joseph Deaton.
Hi all. So first off, happy Pride Month, sending lots of love and light to all of those that are celebrating. Secondly, thank you librarians for coming today. Please fully fund our libraries across the county. These students deserve equitable resources to materials across the county, no matter where they live. The main reason I'm here tonight is to talk about the mental health of our students. My daughter has been diagnosed with both autism and anxiety. She has several struggles, but fortunately or unfortunately, these struggles are mostly invisible to most people. She often comes across as shy, but once she meets you and gets comfortable, she's silly and goofy and just a pleasure. With her diagnoses, it is not always visible that she is constantly masking and focusing on going with the flow. Unfortunately, while masking, she comes across as a perfect child, and this is what we've been told numerous times by her teachers and the rest of her school community. She's just a pleasure and just so perfect. While I appreciate the compliment, this masking, she has told me, this masking shows that she can pretend to be perfect on the outside, but yet her inside does not match this at all. She tells me that she forces herself to not move or fidget during class time so she doesn't get reprimanded. She tells me oftentimes that she chooses not to use her fidgets or use flexible seating arrangements because she's afraid of getting in trouble. I applaud her resilience and restraint to come across as being perfect, but this comes at a significant cost. Many days she comes home and she is just completely spent. She comes home and has mental and emotional breakdowns. These come in the form of basically meltdowns and tantrums that you see in toddlers. While I can deal with these, the biggest problem that I see with all of this and other kids is that there's a huge long-term risk of masking and the mental health burden that these children bear. Unfortunately, I am a very big believer in mental health, and the long-term consequences for masking have been studied, and they can lead to higher rates of depression and suicide. Sadly, I already have lost both my parents to these diseases, and I cannot stand by and allow my daughter to have another greater risk of suicide and depression in her life. I feel these could be easily fixed and addressed by some understanding of masking in the neurodivergent and autistic communities. I urge the Wake County School Board to review policies around these, and especially to treat those who may appear to be perfect on the outside as not being perfect on the inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joseph Deaton, who will be followed by Jane Miller.
Good evening. For the top budget priority, I fully support raises for teachers and especially bus drivers, a just wage for an honest day's work. But to keep within a fixed total budget, you must take a hard look at administrative expenses that have ballooned in recent years. I know how painful layoffs and pay cuts are. I lived through 10 layoffs when I worked in R&D for a company that used to be one of the Dow 30 industrials before it fell upon hard times. Finally, my whole business unit was sold to an Asian company that didn't want any American employees. I subsequently took an academic research job at less than half the pay. I don't think it's right for you all to keep asking people like me and others to pay higher and higher taxes before you've done serious belt tightening. Nor is it in the best interest of students for you to keep applying political pressure to deny opportunity scholarships so that you can keep a monopoly on funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jane Miller, who will be followed by Linwood Watson. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Chair Haggerty, and board members. My name is Jane Miller. I'm the librarian at Fuquay-Varina Elementary and a proud NCAE member. My mission as a librarian is to make every child a reader. When children see themselves as readers, they spend more time practicing reading, they perform better on all types of tests, and have more confidence. After all, literacy is the key to success in the information age. To make a child a reader, you need the right book for the right kid at the right time. I surveyed my students to find out what types of books they want to read. This list of their responses is 5 pages of unique answers because I didn't want to type Taylor Swift 40 times. My kids want books on how to play golf, chrysalises, the mythical drop bear, which I didn't know was a thing, the French Revolution, puppies, soccer, Hindu holidays, chickens, and the Kansas City Chiefs, to name a few. And every day a child asks me, has my book come in yet? Because they have their hearts set on these books, and they truly believe that I'm going to make all of those wishes come true. This is why we have to fully fund libraries. What do librarians do if they do not have funding? Book fairs are the most common form of fundraising, but as any child can tell you, there is nothing fair about a book fair. Every year, no matter how hard I try to identify kids who don't have money and give them free books, there are always children crying that they can't afford what they want or that they don't have as much as someone else. And I know that other schools would have even more disappointed students than mine does. Grants are an option, but thousands apply and only a few win, leaving most of us wasting our time filling out applications. But worst of all, many librarians in this county charge our students fines for the lost and damaged books. This is the worst practice, as it punishes our students who have the least access to books by charging them money they cannot afford. When I arrived at my school, I had to call parents and convince them to allow their child to get library books again. They had refused to allow their children to get books because the previous librarian had charged them fines. There's only one way to turn our children into the readers we want them to be. We must fund school libraries as an essential part of our school system. I urge you to fully fund school libraries by allocating funds from Fund 2.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Baylock, will be followed by Gwendolyn Yale.
I don't want to look up and start talking yet till I'm set. Okay. Good evening, board members. Thank you for your time. A drug policy budget item is needed and appropriate for the Wake County school system. A study in Forbes magazine states, the areas of our upper brain are responsible for logic and rational thinking. Our lower brain areas are responsible for producing pleasure and emotions. As humans, we tend to be guided more by our pleasure centers than by logic and reason. If we begin to use our logical thinking from our upper brain to satisfy the pleasure cravings of our lower brain, we will begin to behave in highly unacceptable ways. Some of the issues: your self-worth degrades. Your perception of others becomes distorted. Your perception of reality and life changes. But this study was not about the effect of drugs, but of pornography on children. To believe that pornography cannot develop into an addiction is a fallacy that denies the biological and neurological reality of the functioning of the brain. I spent May 15th and the 29th downtown Raleigh for the NC Legislative Day. I stood at the Pavement Education Project table and discussed the books found in the Wake County school systems and others across the state. These books have graphic, pornographic pictures. Others promote suicide. If I were to hand any of these books to a minor, I would be arrested, but the schools are exempt. There was much disbelief to everyone who browsed through the books. There wasn't an exception. There were multiple speakers, including from Charlotte, Gays Against Groomers. He did a great job. One of the reporters asked, "Aren't you afraid of going down the slippery slope of banning books?" We are not campaigning to ban books. We are asking for age-appropriate access, just like the movie theaters and gaming stores. Like when I took my 12-year-old grandson, I had to show my ID. I walked over to the reporter and, same reporter, and asked if this should be in the school libraries. So this is in your libraries. This is oral sex on a male. Then we have this classic in elementary school. When you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. Just a baby. They looked at you and made a guess. Well, I could make a guess right now. This book is trash. When people guess wrong, it's okay to let them know. Ruthie was 5 when she told her parents, "I know you think I'm a boy, but I feel like a girl." So this is what we're feeding elementary kids. We and NC Values brought over 3,000 signatures, a stack about 10 inches tall, to the legislatures. We got the signatures at the NC Fairgrounds, DMV lines, town events, and churches across the state. After that, we visited over 90 legislatures, and they all.
Thank you, Mr. Baylock. Next speaker is Gwendolyn Yale, followed by Chris Tuttle.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Chair Haggerty, and school board members. My name is Gwendolyn Yale. I'm a proud Wake County school librarian and NCAE member. You've been hearing and will continue to hear from my colleagues and our community partners about our concerns for library budgets in this county. We know, and you know, that literacy is crucial to our students of all ages. We all know that free access to information that is appropriate, current, representative, and available to all of our students is crucial to their growth. We also know that librarians in this county are educated professionals who are very passionate about their work. I'd like to pose a few questions about your vision for the county. What does a student meeting their full potential look like to you? Does this vision include research skills? Does it include creativity and critical thinking? Do you see students collaborating with each other and school staff? Do you see students interested in their curriculum and searching for materials to supplement their learning? Do you see a library as a heart of this vision as it is the heart of the school? Every day in my library, students are reading, creating, researching, and we are engaging their critical thinking, collaboration, and communication skills. I know libraries and librarians across the county are seeing and doing the same thing. What I can't say is that libraries across the county are seen as a funding priority in the same way that they are seen as the heart of the school. I'm here today to ask you to consider fully funding school libraries by allocating with parity from Fund 2. I urge you to support all 158 librarians who stand behind this request. Let's equip our students with the tools they need to succeed in an ever-evolving world. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Chris Tuttle, followed by Cecilia Joyce.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Chair Haggerty, and board members. My name is Chris Tuttle, and I am the librarian at South Garner High School and a proud Wake NCAE member. I know that each of you values literacy and believes that all students deserve access to books that reflect their identities and experiences, spark their curiosity, and enrich their imaginations. I've heard you speak passionately about the power of Wake Up and Read and the importance of children having books to call their own. I know you understand the transformative power of stories and the impact they can have on our kids. Additionally, Priority 1 of the Wake County Strategic Plan highlights the importance of foundational literacies and skills in reading. Our school libraries are essential to upholding these values and beliefs. For many of my students, our library is their sole source of access to books. With the high cost of books and limited discretionary income, many families can't afford to purchase them, and public libraries are far from where my students live. I am fortunate to have a principal who prioritizes library funding, which has enabled me to offer a vibrant and up-to-date collection for my students. Ms. Johnson-Hostler has visited our library many times, and I believe she would agree with the importance of this support. Over the past year, I've spoken with librarians across our district who struggle to keep their collections current, engaging, and representative, depending on grants, book fairs, and PTAs to buy books. We fund what we prioritize. If you believe that literacy skills are essential and that every student should have access to books, then you must agree that all students deserve fully funded libraries. Currently, 70% of our schools have outdated collections, as measured by the WCPSS Library Collection Standards and reported in the 2023 North Carolina Digital Learning and Media Inventory. According to the WCPSS Library Collection Standards, the average age of fiction books should be 2009, and nonfiction books should be between 2012 and 2016. 138, that's 70% of our libraries, are not meeting the standards that Wake County has set. Tonight, I stand with 158 librarians, a supermajority, who have signed the petition urging you to fully fund school libraries by allocating resources with parity from Fund 2. Without this funding, how can our library collections remain current, engaging, and representative? More importantly, how do we justify to our students that we aren't willing to invest in something we claim is crucial for their success? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cecilia Joyce, followed by Carrie Richardson.
Hi, I am Cecilia Joyce, the proud librarian at Dillard Drive Magnet Elementary School. I am also a proud NCAE member and parent of 2 Wake County Public School graduates. Go Inlow Eagles. I am myself a product of Wake County Public Schools. I live in District 7 and my school is in District 5. Sometimes people ask me how it is to be a school librarian these days. See, some people think that kids don't like reading anymore. I was speaking to someone recently who had this false impression. He said, it must be hard to teach kids in the library. And I said, no, my students love coming to the library. Many of them don't have access to books in their homes and don't have the opportunity to go to a public library. I went on to explain that I have curated a collection of books that's relevant to them, one that honors many cultures, one in which they see themselves reflected, and most of all, a very fun and current book collection. I was able to build a collection like this because we are a new magnet school and have had 3 years of magnet grant money with which to purchase new books. I am now worried that I will not be able to continue to update and add to this fine collection now that our magnet money has dried up. My principal is very supportive of the library, but she is forced to stretch our school's budget to include many, many things. I am worried that new library books may be cut from future budgets because of multiple demands. I am worried that our PTA will feel obligated to run not 1, but 2 book fairs to fund book purchases. This means that families are paying for the books, essentially, when they have already paid taxes, which should be spent towards books. I'm worried that in my already impossible schedule, I will have to make time to write grants in order to keep my collection relevant and current. I am joining with a majority of school librarians in this county who have signed a petition, and many of whom have come here today, to ask you to consider fully funding school libraries with parity from Fund 2. Please note that we are not asking for additional funds. We are asking for a policy that funds libraries with parity. School librarians in Wake County are literacy leaders in our schools. However, a majority of school libraries in Wake County do not receive funding to purchase regular and replacement books for their students. This is at a time when over 130 of our schools do not meet the Wake County Public Schools' own standards. These standards require an average age of books of 2009 or later. And more than half of our libraries do not meet this standard. This needs to change. Sufficient book budgets for all schools would have positive literacy results, and it's just the right thing to do for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joyce. Now, before Ms. Richardson speaks, could I get Linwood Watson to raise a hand? Okay, I want to sincerely apologize. I misidentified another speaker who was up here as Linwood Watson, and I even wrote down some nice quotes and attributed them to you instead of who actually spoke them. So if you don't mind, I know it's out of order, but if you'd be willing to come up and speak after Ms. Richardson, okay? And again, I apologize for the oversight. And again, when the meeting's over, I do want to find out who was talking about the fines that were charged, because I accidentally attributed those comments to the wrong person. That was you. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Richardson, if you're ready. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Hey, I'm Carrie Richardson, and I have 3 children in Wake County Public Schools. I have an elementary schooler, a middle schooler, and a rising high schooler. I'm here today to advocate for a district policy that will fund with parity from the instructional materials fund. Whoops, sorry, that sentence got messed up when I fixed it. The library budget line for the schools each year. I'm confident that we all know the importance of libraries and books and the impact that reading can have on a student. I'm also sympathetic to how tricky school budgets can be. And the real issue is that there's simply not enough money allocated to schools. But that's a much more complex problem and not one the school board can fix easily today. One of the things that the school board can do is make a significant positive change in the Wake County Public School System library collections. Improving collections at libraries throughout the county by designating funding is a measure that will benefit every student that walks through school doors, because all learners visit the library. Your average student, your gifted student, your ESL student, your special education student, they all have access to school libraries. Right now in Wake County, funding for libraries is discretionary, which means having up-to-date resources often gets put on the back burner. In the 2022-2023 school year, 52% of Wake County schools had $0 from instructional funds allocated for library books. And 90% of those that were funded were still under $10 per pupil. That's less than half the cost of the $21 books that the libraries would want to purchase. The current underfunding means that if a library collection is getting any new books or replacing damaged books, it's typically in more affluent zip codes, where PTA support, profitable book fairs, and parent donations backfill the budget. And even those schools are finding outdated books in their collections, one that lists Pluto as a planet, or contain inappropriate terminology for disabled people and minority groups. I asked my children if they thought this issue was important. And while my elementary schooler was pro more Dogman books, and books for book reports, my middle and high schooler agreed that up-to-date science materials, databases, and online access to online resources, which would be included in this funding, was definitely worthwhile. This is a fixable problem, but only if the board funds it. Please make sure that students countywide have access to up-to-date books, regardless of their zip code. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so now, Mr. Watson, I apologize if you'd like to come up and share your remarks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the school board. Appreciate the chance to be here. I also appreciate all our esteemed librarians and principals and school staff members. They are our oracles at Delphi, definitely. My name is Linwood Watson. I've got 2 kids in the Wake County Public School System. Eat my own cooking. I've got skin in the game, like many of y'all. And I just want to say I've had the privilege of not only having my kids in the Wake County school system their entire primary school career, but also I've served on our school library MTAC committee, advisory committee, as a parent liaison for the last 4 years. So I've also served with some of the middle school librarians with their book club. So I've heard a lot, and I've seen a decent amount, and I just really want to advocate as a parent for this special relationship with books that our school libraries really foster. You know, as a parent, it's an upstream battle, as we all know. I know, though, when I walk by my kids' room at night and I peek in the door and look at them at their desk, hopefully they're at their desk, doing their work, you know, when I see a book, I tend to rest easy. But when I see a screen, as a dad, I tend to get a little nervous. Because not being a Luddite, but you know, screens are pernicious and they're insidious. It's like playing whack-a-mole. I look in the back seat, my rearview mirror, there's a screen, and then the friends got a screen, and they all got different sources and different motives. And you know, as a parent, I'm all for effective tools, but I don't want my kids to be a tool. And because of that, I really advocate for books. Books are time-tested. They're not perfect, but they're something that really relate, as you mentioned, School Board Member Rice, there's a special relationship. And we mentioned the neurons. There's biochemical connections, axons and dendrites, all connecting there through processes that we don't even know about, through that connection from eyes to verbal to parents, librarians, teachers, and connections. And this is something that is all fostered with books. So, you know, in short, I really hope that we can have this designation for books to assist our librarians so that, you know, this special relationship can continue. I know it's trendy nowadays to focus on STEM. I'm all for STEM, but how are we going to get the STEM accomplished? As a friend of mine in AI says, AI will give you a lot of how and when and where, but it's never going to give you the why. And the why comes from here, and books engender that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. All right, at this point on our agenda, we will turn to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion for adoption of the consent agenda, of the items on the consent agenda from Mr. Hershey. Second from Mr. Swanson. All in favor of the consent agenda items, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, those items have passed. We now, let's see, we have a motion to go for Mr. Hershey to go back to closed session.
Second.
For the reasons previously stated. I heard a second from Ms. Caulfield. All in favor of returning to closed session, please signify by saying aye. What did I do? At this point, y'all, give me some grace. All right. Do we want to correct that for the minutes? Miss Allen's got my back, so I appreciate that. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll take a moment and reconvene in the board conference room. Thank you very much.